You are trapped in a prison of your own making, and the cruelest part is that the bars of this prison are invisible. As you read these words, millions of people around the world are cancelling plans, avoiding conversations, and faking illnesses to escape social situations. They believe they're protecting themselves. In reality, they are feeding the monster that devours them from within. Social anxiety isn't just a fleeting discomfort. It's a vicious cycle that strengthens with every avoidance, every escape, every moment you choose isolation over confronting your fears. It's a downward spiral that turns your life into a diminished version of what it could be. Carl Jung, the pioneer of depth psychology, revealed that our most painful symptoms are always messengers from the psyche. Social anxiety is your soul's desperate cry for integration. It's the rejected shadow knocking on the door of consciousness, demanding to be recognized. But here's the truth. No one tells you. You aren't anxious because you're inadequate. You're anxious because you are fighting against fundamental parts of who you are. Every social situation you avoid is a lost opportunity to become whole. The social anxiety cycle works like a perfectly calibrated self-sabotage machine. You feel fear. You avoid the situation. You feel temporary relief. Then you feel shame for having avoided it. And when the next similar situation arises, the fear is even greater. It's a psychological labyrinth where every exit seems to lead to a dead end. Most people trapped in this cycle believe they first need to conquer fear before they can act. It's the exact opposite. Fear only diminishes through conscious action, through the gradual integration of the parts of yourself that you reject. Think about it. How many versions of yourself have died because you chose the safety of the known over the adventure of growth? How many conversations never happened? How many connections never formed? How many dreams were never realized because you believed the lie that you weren't worthy of being seen and accepted? Your social anxiety isn't a manufacturing defect. It's a dysregulated alarm system that has learned to see danger where there is opportunity. It's the voice of the inferiority complex whispering that you're not enough when the truth is you were always enough, just fragmented. The most ironic part is that while you hide to protect yourself from the judgment of others, the harshest judgment comes from within. The inner tribunal never rests, never acquits, never forgives. You have become your own executioner. But there is a way out of this prison. There is a way to break the chains you yourself have forged. There is a path back home, to the totality of who you truly are. Jung discovered something revolutionary about self-destructive cycles. They only exist as long as they remain unconscious. The moment you illuminate the patterns with the light of consciousness, they begin to dissolve. And that is why you urgently need to understand the reasons why breaking this cycle is not just an option, but an existential necessity. Because every day you remain trapped is one less day of authentic life. And you have already lost too much time. Stop for a moment and be brutally honest with yourself. How many times this week did you cancel something at the last minute because the anxiety was stronger? How many times did you rehearse a simple conversation in your head 50 times before making a call? How many times did you pretend not to see someone you knew on the street to avoid a social interaction? Do you recognize this pattern? It's because you're living life through a distorted lens, where every glance is a judgment, every silence is a rejection, and every interaction is a test you're doomed to fail. While you run from discomfort, it grows. While you feed avoidance, it strengthens. While you deny parts of yourself, they sabotage your social life. Observe what happens when you avoid a social situation. First, there's relief. Phew, I don't have to face that today. But then comes the shame. The inner critical voice that whispers, "You're weak. You're a coward. You'll never change." And at the next similar opportunity, the fear is even greater. Because now you have two voices sabotaging you. The original fear and the shame of having avoided it last time. This is how the cycle perpetuates itself, growing like a snowball rolling downhill. You look at people who seem socially confident and think, they were born that way. They have something I don't. But the truth is, they simply aren't fighting against fundamental parts of themselves. They haven't turned their natural humanness into a problem to be solved. Your social anxiety isn't about inadequacy. It's about fragmentation. It's about having rejected authentic aspects of your personality because someone at some point made you believe those parts were not acceptable. Maybe you learned that being spontaneous is dangerous, that being vulnerable is weakness, that having strong opinions is aggressive, that taking up space is selfish. And now you live trying to be an edited version of yourself, a persona built to please, but one that never feels authentic. While you operate through this false persona, your life force is divided. Part of it goes to keeping the mask in place, part to monitoring the reactions of others, and part to suppressing natural impulses. Little is left for simply existing and connecting. Every social interaction becomes a stage where you play a role, instead of an opportunity for genuine encounter. You're so focused on not looking anxious that you forget to be present. So worried about being accepted that you miss the chance to be known. The cruel irony is that the more you hide, the more isolated you feel. The more you perform, the less connected you become. The more you avoid rejection, the more you are rejected by yourself. Do you recognize this pattern of self-sabotage? It's because you are projecting your unintegrated shadow onto every social situation. The fear you feel from others is the echo of the judgment you place on yourself. And today, you will understand not only how this mechanism works, but why breaking this cycle is not just a possibility, but an existential urgency. Because every day trapped in this dynamic is one less day of a full, authentic, and connected life. To break a cycle, you first need to understand its anatomy. Social anxiety functions as a closed negative feedback loop, where each part feeds and strengthens the others. Imagine your psyche as an internal ecosystem. In a healthy ecosystem, all parts coexist in balance. But when you reject fundamental aspects of who you are, those aspects don't simply disappear. They become shadow. And the unintegrated shadow always returns as a symptom. The social shadow is composed of all the natural human qualities you've learned to deem unacceptable. Your spontaneity, your assertiveness, your vulnerability, your authentic opinion, your need for attention, your right to take up space. When you exile these parts, they begin to operate from the unconscious, creating anxiety. The mechanism works like this. You enter a social situation carrying rejected parts of yourself. These parts create an internal tension because they want to be expressed, but you keep them locked away. This tension manifests as anxiety. To relieve the anxiety, you avoid or flee the situation. The avoidance reinforces the belief that you need to hide. And the cycle begins again, stronger. Jung called this an autonomous complex, a psychological pattern that operates independently of consciousness, influencing thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. The social anxiety complex functions like a destructive autopilot, always seeking confirmation that you are not fit for social connection. Projection is another central mechanism. When you reject parts of yourself, you automatically project those parts onto others. If you deny your own inner critic, you will perceive judgment coming from outside. If you reject your own natural aggressiveness, you will feel that others are threatening. If you deny your need for attention, you will believe that others will reject you for being too much. The inner tribunal is the cruelest manifestation of this system. It is a psychic structure that never stops judging, evaluating, and condemning. It analyzes every word you speak, every gesture you make, every reaction you provoke. And the verdict is always the same: guilty of not being enough. This tribunal feeds on impossible perfectionism. It creates imaginary social rules that no human being could possibly follow. You must always seem confident but never arrogant, interesting but not overbearing, present but not needy, authentic but socially appropriate. It's a game where the rules constantly change and victory is impossible. The cycle is maintained through experiential avoidance. Every time you avoid an uncomfortable social situation, you lose the opportunity to discover that your fears are exaggerations of reality. You lose the chance to integrate rejected parts through direct experience. You lose the possibility of discovering that you can be accepted exactly as you are. Social anxiety is not about a personal defect. It's about psychic disintegration. And healing doesn't come from becoming a different version of yourself. It comes from recovering and integrating the authentic parts you left behind. Now that you understand how this system works, you can see why breaking it is not just desirable, but absolutely necessary. First urgent reason. Your life force is being wasted on internal battles that lead nowhere. Imagine all the energy you spend monitoring your reactions, rehearsing conversations, analyzing past interactions, and avoiding future situations. This energy could be used to create, connect, experience, and grow. But it's trapped in a self-sabotage loop that consumes your psychic resources without producing anything of value. Every moment you spend in anticipatory anxiety is a moment stolen from the present. Every social interaction filtered through fear is a lost opportunity for genuine connection. You are living a smaller life than what is possible, not due to external limitations, but to internal fragmentation. Second urgent reason. You are creating an identity based on limitations, not possibilities. When the social anxiety cycle becomes chronic, you start to build your identity around the things you can't do. I'm too introverted to speak in public. I'm too shy to make new friends. I'm too sensitive to handle conflict. These are not truths about who you are. They are descriptions of a fragmented psychic system. An identity based on limitations becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You start to look for evidence that confirms your limitations and ignore experiences that contradict them. Your perception becomes selective, always focusing on what confirms that you are incapable of authentic social connection. Third urgent reason. Your relationships are being built on a false foundation. When you operate through a social persona designed to avoid rejection, your relationships are not with who you truly are, but with the edited version you present. This creates a profound existential isolation. You can be surrounded by people, but feel completely alone, because no one truly knows who you are. Relationships based on false personas are like castles built on sand. They may seem solid for a while, but they cannot withstand the pressure of real intimacy or inevitable conflicts. And you live with the constant fear of being found out, of people seeing through the mask and running away. Fourth urgent reason. You are missing opportunities for growth through social adversity. Every uncomfortable social situation you avoid was a disguised opportunity for psychic integration. Discomfort is not the enemy. It's the signal that you are touching upon shadow material that needs to be integrated. When you flee from discomfort, you miss the chance to discover internal resources you never knew you had. Social adversity is where personality is forged. It's where you discover that you can be rejected and survive, that you can make social mistakes and recover, that you can show vulnerability and be accepted, that you can have conflicts and maintain relationships. Every avoidance is a lost opportunity to discover your own resilience. Psychological growth happens at the boundary between the known and the unknown, between the comfortable and the challenging. When you systematically avoid this boundary, your personality stops expanding. You become stuck in a smaller version of yourself, not by choice, but by fear. These first 4 reasons reveal a painful truth. The cycle of social anxiety not only prevents you from living fully, it actively builds a life based on imaginary limitations. And every day you remain trapped in it is one less day of discovering who you can truly become when you stop fighting your own nature. Fifth urgent reason. Your social intuition is being distorted by filters of fear. When you operate through chronic social anxiety, you lose access to your natural social intelligence. Your intuition about people and situations becomes clouded by unprocessed fears and projections. You interpret neutrality as rejection, silence as judgment, and normal facial expressions as disapproval. This perceptual distortion not only harms your current interactions, it creates false memories that fuel future anxieties. You remember social situations as more traumatic than they actually were because your perception was filtered through fear. And these distorted memories become evidence that similar situations in the future will be equally threatening. Sixth urgent reason. You are teaching other people to treat you as fragile. When you operate through avoidance and the constant attempt not to bother anyone, you send subconscious signals that you need to be handled with special care. People start walking on eggshells around you, avoiding topics that might make you uncomfortable, and not including you in situations they deem too much for you. This creates a cycle of social infantilization. The more you protect yourself, the more others feel they need to protect you. The more you avoid social responsibility, the more it is taken from you. You end up being treated as someone who cannot handle full adult life, and this reinforces your perception of inadequacy. The cruelest part is that this special treatment, while it may seem like caring, is actually a subtle form of exclusion. You are not seen as someone capable of handling the normal intensity, complexity, and challenges of adult social life. Seventh urgent reason. Your creative and professional potential is being limited by dysfunctional social patterns. Social anxiety doesn't just manifest in personal situations. It contaminates your ability to express yourself professionally, to lead projects, to defend ideas, and to collaborate effectively. You may have brilliant ideas, but if you can't communicate them with confidence, they remain trapped inside you. In meetings, you stay silent when you could contribute. In presentations, you focus more on not looking nervous than on conveying your message. In negotiations, you accept less than you deserve because you're afraid of conflict. Your talent is submerged under layers of social insecurity. Professionally, this translates into missed opportunities, promotions that don't come, and projects that don't materialize. Not for lack of technical competence, but for an inability to navigate the social dimension of work with authenticity and confidence. Eighth urgent reason. You are passing this pattern down to the next generations. If you have children, nieces, nephews, or any young person who looks up to you as a role model, you are modeling a pattern of relating to social life that is based on fear. Children don't just learn from what you say, they absorb how you relate to the world. When they see you avoiding social situations, canceling plans due to anxiety, and hiding from your own authenticity, they learn that the social world is dangerous and that they, too, need to protect themselves. You may be inadvertently passing on the same pattern that you likely received from important figures in your own upbringing. This is perhaps the most urgent reason of all. Breaking the cycle isn't just about your personal liberation. It's about interrupting a generational transmission of limiting patterns. It's about becoming a living example that it's possible to be authentically yourself and still be accepted and loved. Each of these 8 reasons reveals a different facet of the same truth. The cycle of social anxiety is a life thief that operates in the shadows, stealing possibilities, distorting perceptions, and limiting potential. And the longer you remain trapped in it, the greater the cost to your fulfillment as a complete human being. Now that you recognize the urgency of breaking the cycle, how exactly do you do it? The answer lies in the conscious integration of your social shadow through targeted action. The first step is to observe without identifying. When social anxiety arises, instead of fighting it or running from it, observe it as an interesting phenomenon. Ask, what part of me am I rejecting in this moment? What authentic aspect of my personality is trying to emerge and being suppressed? Anxiety always points to shadow material. It is a psychological GPS indicating where the parts of you that need to be recovered and integrated are located. If you feel anxious when speaking in public, there is likely a part of you that wants to be seen and heard, but was taught it was showy or inadequate. The central practice is moving toward discomfort, not to get rid of it, but to discover what it is protecting. Every social situation you have been avoiding is a disguised invitation to integration. You don't have to dive in head first. It can be gradual, but it must be consistent. Start small. If you avoid making phone calls, make one simple call today. If you avoid starting conversations, initiate one brief conversation. If you avoid expressing opinions, express one small opinion. The goal is not to become a different person. It's to stop hiding from who you already are. During these experiences, practice radical acceptance. Accept that you can feel anxious and still be safe. Accept that you can be rejected and still have value. Accept that you can make social mistakes and still be worthy of connection. Acceptance is not resignation. It is the soil where growth happens. Develop a compassionate inner dialogue. When the inner critical voice begins its tribunal, respond as you would to a dear friend. It's normal to feel scared in new situations. It's human to want to be accepted. I'm learning and growing, and that's what matters. Self-compassion isn't self-indulgence. It's the antidote to toxic shame. Practice the gradual revelation of authenticity. In safe conversations, start to show more of who you really are. Express an honest opinion. Share a fear or insecurity. Show enthusiasm for something you care about. Allow people to see your imperfect humanity and discover that this increases, not decreases, connection. When you catch yourself avoiding a social situation, pause and ask, if I were the most authentic and integrated version of myself, how would I approach this? Then act from that answer, even if you feel fear. The fear doesn't have to disappear for you to act. It can be present during the action. Create integration rituals. At the end of each day, reflect on moments when you acted authentically, even while feeling discomfort. Celebrate these moments as victories on the journey of integration. Also, observe moments when you hid, not to judge yourself, but to understand which parts of you were asking for attention. Remember, you're not trying to eliminate social anxiety. You are learning to dance with it. You're discovering that you can feel discomfort and still be present. You can be imperfect and still be accepted. You can be authentically human and still belong. The journey of breaking the cycle is not linear. There will be days of progress and days of retreat. That is normal. That is human. That is the process of integration happening. You've reached the end of this journey different from how you began. You can no longer unsee the 8 urgent reasons. You can no longer pretend that the cycle of social anxiety is harmless. The awareness you now carry is both a gift and a responsibility. You are now the observer of your own internal dynamics. You are no longer the unconscious victim of inherited patterns. You are the conscious author of your transformation. You are no longer the person who hides. You are the presence that gradually reveals itself. Starting today, every social situation becomes an opportunity for choice. You can choose the familiarity of the old cycle or the courage of the new integration. You can choose the safety of the known persona or the adventure of the unknown authenticity. You can choose the comfortable prison of fear or the uncomfortable freedom of growth. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Millions of people around the world are making the same walk back home, back to the totality of who they truly are. Every step you take toward authenticity is a step that makes it easier for others to take the same step. Your courage to be imperfect and authentic gives others permission to do the same. Your willingness to show vulnerability creates safe spaces where genuine connections can flourish. You become part of the solution, not just for yourself, but for the epidemic of social isolation that plagues our time. The 8 reasons you've discovered are not just reasons to change. They are doorways to a completely new life. A life where your social interactions are genuine encounters, not anxious performances. A life where your life force flows toward creation and connection, not obsessive self-monitoring. A life where you belong because you are authentically you, not in spite of being you. The journey of integrating the social shadow has no definitive finish line. It is a continuous process of discovery, acceptance, and authentic expression. Each day offers new opportunities to choose courage over fear, presence over avoidance, and integration over fragmentation. You now have the conceptual and practical tools to break the cycle. Only one thing is missing: the daily decision to apply them. The decision to move toward discomfort instead of running from it. The decision to reveal yourself instead of hiding. The decision to belong through authenticity, not in spite of it. Comment which of the 8 reasons most impacted your perspective on social anxiety. Like this if you felt the courage to look at your own patterns of avoidance. Subscribe to continue this journey of integration and discover that the freedom you seek isn't on the other side of fear, but through it. The real question isn't whether you can break the cycle of social anxiety. The question is, are you willing to discover who you become when you stop fighting your own nature? Allow yourself to be exactly who you are. The world is waiting for you.